Mujevali. My name is Bani Kivuka and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Welcome again to the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Today I was thinking about a topic to talk about, and this is a disclaimer to people who are watching that some of these events I'm going to talk about, they can bring PTSD to some people who know about the events of the things that happened at the time. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about the story of the post-election violence in Kenya that happened when me and my brother and my mom were in the country. This happened in December 27, 2007. And this post-election violence came up, and it was a political, economic, and humanitarian crisis that erupted in Kenya after the former president, Mwai Kibaki, was declared the winner of the elections. 2007, I was 15 years old, and my brother was 17, turning 18, because his birthday is in December the 27th, which was the day of the election. But before I get into all that story, before everything happened, for those of you who don't know, I'm half Kenyan and half Ugandan. And the reason behind that is that my mom is Kenyan and my dad is Ugandan. So every year we would travel to go to Kenya to see my mom's side of the family and my grandma, my cousins, and that was always my favorite time of the year because I'll get to see all my cousins and we'll get together, just play and have fun. But besides that too, the trip to Kenya was always exciting. And every Christmas when we would go to Kenya, just thinking about the road trip to drive from Kampala to Eldoret, that was always exciting. And sometimes we would drive with my dad, mom, uncles, and we'll drive personal cars to Kenya. But then sometimes we would just use the bus, a commercial bus that would be in Kampala. I remember some of the buses were called Akamba. That was a while back. And if you've heard of Akamba, and then Kampala coach, I would use any of those to travel to go to Kenya. And my mom would actually pack our clothes 2 months prior to the trip. She's a freak about packing and having everything organized. And then the day of traveling, we would be at the bus station 2 hours earlier than the departure time. So she didn't want us to miss the bus. But this one time when we were going to Kenya, the trip felt weird. Everything was just weird. I felt something is off, but we didn't know, and we didn't really give it too much attention. And we traveled to the bus station. We were that one year we didn't have a car, so me, my mom, and brother had to carry all our luggages on our head through Kampala. And those of you who know Kampala, the traffic and everything, we were just walking through Kampala with luggages on our head. And when we got to the bus station, we were waiting for the bus because I told you we get there 2 hours earlier. My mom seemed unhappy. She seemed a little off, and that's added to the things I was saying. That trip, that time felt just weird. And we were wondering what's wrong with my mom. We asked her, but she was like, no, I'm fine. So we didn't think about it because we were just excited to go to Kenya. And on that trip, some of my favorite places is the Mabira Forest, where they have the michomo. It's a roasted chicken, and they sell food on the street. So that was always my exciting moment, to get to that place and just buy the roasted chicken and the drinks. And then they have, what they call them, the bananas. Then they have gonja. I don't know how that's called in English, but yeah, gonja. That was always exciting, and I couldn't wait to just get to that place. And every time with my brother we would talk about that trip, we couldn't miss that spot. But the thing I hated was the bus was so exhausting. You have a lot of people in the bus, people traveling with all different kind of stuff. And it's just exhausting. It's not a personal car, so you just have to bear with whatever is happening on your bus trip. Usually the trip from Kampala to Eldoret takes about 7 hours at the most if you didn't have any issues with the bus or anything. But the most exhausting part of the trip is when you get to the border. So you get to the border and you have to get a temporary permit. Some people call it ebibali. So like it's a temporary visa that lets you to go to Kenya and stay in Kenya. And that's always a panic. Everybody's just trying to get to go. If the bus packs, everybody's just trying to go to enter so they can get their visas. And when our bus stopped, me and my brother always want to run out fast so we can go ahead of everybody. And our mom could find us in the line, so we're not way behind in the line. And this one day we were trying to run, get out of the bus, and our mom was like, "No, don't rush. Let the people go first. Just stay back." And I was like, "Why is our mom telling us to stay back? Like, what's going on? I don't understand." Because she usually says, "Yeah, go first, and I'll come join you." And I was like, it kept adding on to the weird part of the trip. So we stayed back because we respect our mom very well. And our mom broke it to us. She said, "I lost the money for your temporary permit." And that's why she was sad at the bus station, because she realized somebody stole her money when we were walking through Kampala. So somebody pickpocketed her and they stole the money for our temporary permit. But my mom had a passport. Me and my brother didn't have a passport. And at that time, she tried to call people to send us money at the bus station, but nobody could answer their phones. And she didn't want to cancel the trip because we have already paid for the buses. So she let the trip go on, and she had a plan in her head that when we get to the border, I'll talk to those officers that they can keep her passport so they can give us temporary permits to go into Kenya. And that was her plan, because we didn't have any money. She didn't have any money, and we didn't have any money either. So we go out of the bus, enter the little officers at the border, and she starts explaining to this officer, like, "Hey, I've lost the money. They stole the money when I was coming. I don't have any money. But you can keep my passport and let my kids have the visas." But the officer's like, "No, madam, it doesn't work like that." So she wanted them to have her passport so we can go to Kenya, get money from either my aunt or anybody, and then we can pay for our visas. And the officer said no. We called our mom on the side, me and my brother. Boy, just little stubborn boys. And we said, "Mom, we're just going to cross the border." So me and my brother left the office. Our mom said, okay. She got the visa in her passport. Me and my brother just pretended like we are locals. We folded our pants and just walked as regular kids. You know, people who live at the border can cross back and forth, like from Kenya to the Uganda side, because they do business around there. So we pretended to be one of those kids on the border, just walking around. We crossed to the Kenya side without the visas, without anything. But the problem with that is that the bus, everybody has to get a visa, get back on the bus, and the bus will cross the border. But me and my brother crossed the border without the bus. We told our mom we're going to be on the other side. We will see us on the road. So when the bus got to us, we tried to wave on the bus driver. He just drove past us. And our mom was like, "Hey, bus driver, those were my kids behind. They just couldn't find the bus. So they just walked across the border." So my mom was like, "Yes." And then my mom explained to the bus driver that something happened and we couldn't go back to Uganda. We don't have any ride. We're like, oh. So we had to run to find the bus and get on the bus. That was a little scary because I was like, what if the bus leaves us here? And what are we going to do? But the bus driver stopped and then we ran. We entered the bus. After we had got to the bus, when the bus crosses Kenya, there's always policemen on the other side of Kenya to check everybody coming into the country. And they'll actually check your passport or your travel permit to see if you got accepted to come to the country. I told my brother we're dead. But what we did was to pretend like we were sleeping. So everybody was taken out of the bus. Me and my brother pretend like we were sleeping so that we can stay on the bus. We stayed on the bus, and when the policemen came checking, looking through the bus, they saw us sleeping. They're like, let's leave these kids. That's how we survived, and they didn't ask us for our travel documents. And then we went to Kenya smoothly. But when we were in a taxi in Kenya, we got pulled over by the Kenyan policemen again. But they just check the taxis, and then try to see if they comply with everything. It wasn't something to get scared about, but if they pointed on you, then you would be in trouble. But we're just crossing our fingers, like, let us survive. But finally we get to Kenya, and then we explained to my aunties. They gave us some money and drove back to the border. Me and my brother this time. We left our mom back there. We drove back to the border, and then we had to do it again, cross the border. We folded our pants and crossing. But this time it wasn't successful because the policeman saw us and called us in the police office. It's like, hey, come here. Where are you going? It's like, we're from Uganda, but we forgot that we're supposed to get a visa. So now we're going back to the Uganda side to get a visa so we can go back to Kenya. So she was like, oh, yeah. You can't cross the border without a visa. Go get the visa right now. So me and my brother ran to the Uganda side and gave them the money. They gave us the visas, and then we crossed back again to the Kenya side, and we went back. And that was scary, but we were just stubborn kids. We didn't really think about it as a big situation, but that could get really scary. And that was something that I experienced, like, this trip is just a little off. But we always travel to Kenya to spend time with my aunties, and like I said, it's always my exciting moment to just be around them and have fun with them. And that's what we're just thinking about with my brother. Like, that's all we want. We just want to have fun, and we always make food, and we play games with my cousins. There's always harvesting corn, like harvesting mahindi in the shamba. That's the garden. We always help our grandma to dig, and just a lot of different things that we do when we go to Kenya. We help her milk the cows and everything, like just walk around the village. Everybody loved us in Kenya. So this December, like I've already told you, was different because, first of all, it was an election year in Kenya because we were voting for a new president. And there was a little fight between the presidents, but we never gave it attention because our family is not really political family. We didn't really care that much. So we had our Christmas and everybody was happy. And the 27th was my brother's birthday, so we're all excited for his birthday. But the 27th was also the election day in Kenya. And usually the results come back pretty quick. Usually that evening. And when the results started coming back, people were not content about the results, and they were starting to roam around, like things were starting to feel around. But me and my brother, being young kids, we didn't really like the village, and some of our cousins were traveling back to the town. So we told my mom, let's go with our cousins to the town so we can be able to have electricity, be able to watch TV, be able to do like fun stuff which you can't do in the village. So she was like, yeah, you can go with them. So we went with my cousins and my aunt. And at that time, the radio had started passing news that things are not all right in the town. Like, they're burning people, they're killing people and rioting in the town. But we didn't get any of that because we had left. And my auntie's phone was in the trunk. So my mom tried to call us like 30 times. We saw 30 missed calls trying to tell us, don't go, turn around and come back. But we didn't see any of that. And we just kept going. We get to the town, but before we enter the town, there's a guy just ran right in front of our car. And he jumped, he said, don't cross this point because people are rioting back there. You're going to get shot, you're going to get killed. Just turn around and go back where you're coming from. And thank God, at that time, we were in the junction of where one of my uncles live, and he was the driver. So he was like, you know what? I'm not taking you to the house where I was supposed to take you. Let's just go to my house. I was like, yep, let's go to your house. And we turned around and went to my uncle's place. He lived in Kapsoya. Those who are familiar with Eldoret in Kenya, he was in Kapsoya. So we just turned around and then went to Kapsoya. It took a while things to happen in his town. So we had about 2 days, 3 days of just living there without. We were seeing the news and things were going crazy. And we decided to celebrate my brother's birthday on the 30th because on the 27th things were a little crazy and we were traveling. We were celebrating my brother's birthday and watching Final Destination at the house. That's when we started hearing gunshots. People were screaming, people were running. And we said, wow, it's getting crazy. And it was in our neighborhood. So my uncle was nervous. And he was like, I don't want anything to happen to you guys. And I'm going to take you away. So he wanted to take us to the village. Because villages were a little safer than the towns. Because all the people were just leaving the villages to come and riot in the town. So we were trying to run from Kapsoya to Nyaru. But in my uncle's house, we had about 15 people. There were like 2 families. And he only had 2 cars that seat around 5 people each. We had to find ways of fitting 15 people in those 2 cars. And then our food and everything. So we were pretty packed. We divided that number into 2, like 7 people in each. Actually, one car had 8. And I was sitting on my cousin's lap. We decided to run away from the town to go to the village. And along the way, there was a lot of roadblocks. And roadblocks, they were pretty scary. Like people were holding machetes. They call them rungu, spears, thorns. And being a 15-year-old boy, I was just scared. My brother was scared to death because he can't even speak a word in my mom's language. At least I can say a greeting, but my brother couldn't say any word. But at that time, we had lost communication with my mom, and my dad was in Uganda. So our family was all split. We were all in different places. My mom learned that she can't get a hold of us. She decided to leave the village to come to the city so she can find us. She went to the house that we didn't go to because we got stopped to go to the house. And when she arrived at that place, they started shooting to the place, throwing stones to the house, and she was almost getting attacked. But the police helped her and escorted her out of the house, and they took her to my grandfather's place in Merawet. Those of you who are familiar with Kenya, you know where Merawet is. So they took her that side, and at that time we were all disconnected. My dad was worried in Uganda. My mom was worried she couldn't find us, and we were in a difficult situation because some of these roadblocks, they took our food, they took our money, and they wanted all the boys that are of the age of 18 to get out of the car to go join them. So each roadblock we got to, we were just giving them, hey, take the food, hey, take the money. My brother had to pretend like he was deaf and dumb, like he can't talk, to survive. I thought of doing the same, but I was like, you can't have 2 deaf people at the same time in one car. So I just had to think of other ways to survive. One of the guys asked me through the door, Chamge? And because I was so scared, frightened, I didn't know what to respond to this guy, and they just spoke Swahili. And that was almost getting me in trouble. My cousin helped me whisper in my ear and tell me what the word I was supposed to tell them. And that's how I got survived. But other people that we saw on the roadblocks never got survived. Some of them were killed, some of them were shot. It's pretty traumatizing to think about, even now, telling this story about watching people getting killed. And like I said, it brings PTSD. But I feel like sharing this because it was God that helped me and helped us all survive. I remember our driver leaving the car, going out of these people riding and just kneeling down to them and crying to them, like, hey, help me. My uncle just knelt down, cried, and asked the people riding to just forgive us and let us go. Now, the house we were running to was in Nyaru, and this house was abandoned in 1999. So it was over 8 years that nobody has stayed in the house. But that's the house we were running to go and at least have a shelter to hide in there. We didn't have any food. We didn't have anything. And at that point, I had not talked to my mom. I had not talked to my dad. And it's been like 3 weeks. My dad was just watching the news about people getting killed. And he just couldn't get a hold of us. And when we got settled in that house, I got a chance to call my dad and tell him about what was happening and what took place. My dad was happy to hear our voice, but we had not talked to my mom. So he asked us, "Where's your mom?" I was like, "We don't know where my mom is." And a day after, I was able to connect with my mom and I talked to her on the phone. And it was pretty scary, but learning that my mom was safe. And in about 3.5 weeks, we got connected with my mom. And at that point, we're in January or something, and the borders were closed. But in that time, when things settled down a little bit, the borders got opened up and people could leave the country. And our visas had expired, but that's the only opportunity we had to just leave the country and go. And at that time, my head was just messed up. I had a lot of fear. I had seen a lot of things that traumatized my head, and I told my mom I'm never coming back to Kenya again forever. But I thought about, after I went back to Uganda, I started school again, and I was doing English composition. They would ask us, write a story about something you'll never forget. And that's the story I wrote every time. Because at one point in Kenya, I said my last prayer because I thought I was going to die. I saw my brother pretending to be deaf, and then I was like, he didn't have any other option. That's all he had to say to survive. And that's something that event stayed in my head for a long time, that it bothered me. And today, just sitting down and talking about these things, I know there's a lot of people that will listen to this and it creates some thoughts back in your head. But I'm just thankful, because when I went to Uganda and got with my dad, I hugged him, and everybody was coming to our house to ask, because everybody was asking my dad, and how is your family? But telling these people the stories of things that happened, it just helped me. And with time, I healed. My heart healed. And these presidents, eventually they met and they discussed about the country, and people forgave each other. When the country healed, I know there's some people that are still hurt, and I'm sorry for the people that lost their loved ones in that time, but I also tell them that God is in control, and sorry for the losses and everything, but also leave you with the word that God is always good. Something that I learned from that story is that God is always good, and God protected us, and God will always protect us. That reminds me of the verse in the book of Psalms, chapter 23, verse 4. Like, even though I walk through a valley of shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, because you were with me. Like, we basically walked through death with those people wanting to kill us and everything, but God was with us. And no matter what situation you're going through, it might be different. It might not be what we went through, which was hard, but God is with you, and He will never forget you. He'll walk through that situation with you. I wanted to just share the part, and I'm sure if my brother was here, he would have given you his part of the story, and just learning about how we got survived from dying, and God giving me another opportunity to live. And thankful for my cousin Laban, who helped me survive faith, because we were all together and we all survived together, and thankful to God for that. So thank you very much for listening to my podcast, and thank you very much for the support that you're giving me. Hey there, I am Bonnie Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching my video, and don't forget to hit subscribe and share with a friend. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time for a new episode about my podcast. And for more information about this podcast, follow me on my Instagram page, talk_show_256.